So what we have here is a Volkswagen-based fiberglass shell Dune Buggy. You've probably seen them. There's a whole bunch of different styles out there. This particular one I picked up about 10 years ago. Started doing some work on it, got a lot done, and then I got sidelined with my Super Bee project. But now, this summer, we are hell-bent to get it back on the road, and maybe not 100% finished, but we'll get it running and driving and looking pretty good. And then next winter we can maybe do some more finished type work to it. So what this is, the chassis that it's based on is a 1960 Volkswagen. Pretty common, pretty standard Volkswagen Beetle chassis. The body, the fiberglass body, is a kit car. I don't actually know what make it is. I don't have any information on the manufacturer. It's kind of a unique style here. It's got the really low sides, which makes getting in and out easier. It's a long pan. It's a full-length pan. Normally these Dune Buggies are cut and shortened. The best I could find is that Myers made a model called the Resorter, which was used for resorts, for picking up people from the airports, apparently. At least that's the story that I got. This one is not that. This is some weird knockoff. I only know of 3 of these that exist. There's this one, which I picked up about 6 years ago. I actually saw another one. It was also red, and that was listed on Craigslist somewhere up northern Minnesota. And then just a few years ago, 3 years ago, I found a third one that was identical to this. That was actually running and driving. I saw it at a Volkswagen show. So I know for a fact that there's 3 of them. There may be more. If anybody knows what this is, I sure would like to know. If there's a manufacturer, maybe some numbers of how many were produced. Other than that, it's nothing special. It's just kind of weird. Now there have been some things done to this over the years. You can see that it's got some weird paint on it. I'll show you a close-up of that. I think it looks like house paint. I think somebody just brushed it with some house paint to make it look a little better. My guess is the original paint was all faded. There's some remnants up here on the dash of just faded paint. Or the gel coat was faded. So they probably just covered it to make it look good, and then it sat outdoors again. We're at a point now where we're actually starting to kind of put things back together. There's been a lot of work already done to the chassis. The rear section's already been completed. We need to finish the front section. This tire is not actually attached to anything. It's just there for looks. We'll show you the front end once we actually start reassembling things. But before we actually really get looking close at this, what we're going to do is I'm going to pull all the boxes of parts that I have. I've been collecting parts for about 10 years, ever since I bought the car. And because it's been sitting so long, I don't remember what's in what box. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through, we're going to organize everything. And then with that, we can really hit this project hard and start putting things back together. So here's our pile of stuff. This is everything I've collected over the last 10 years or so. We're not going to take you through absolutely everything in this pile because you're going to see it eventually once we start putting things back together. But because it's been so long since I've actually have gone through this stuff, one of the first things I'm going to do is just get myself organized. I'm going to go through the boxes, reacquaint myself with what we actually have, kind of organize a little bit by subsection and in specific areas. Once we've got that organization done, Then we kind of tuck away what we don't need for the moment, and we can then turn our attention back to the car. But let's just give you a quick overview of everything that you kind of see here. The motor there is a 1600 dual port Volkswagen. That was rebuilt about 2 years ago. It was a running motor that I acquired, and it was in really good shape when I got it. So essentially all we did is we re-gasketed it, made sure everything's sealed, put an alternator on it so I don't have any future charging issues, tune up, electronic ignition, rebuilt the carburetor. So just, that motor should be good to go. Now, it hasn't run since we've gone through it. But seeing as we didn't make any major changes, we just basically disassembled, cleaned and resealed everything. I don't foresee any issues there. Down here we've got our wheels. It's kind of a classic 70s looking mag wheel. We've got some repairs to do on that. They got to be cleaned and polished, and we're going to do some painting. And so once we get that done, then we can get some tires and get those mounted on the car. There's the steering wheel that we're going to use. I wanted something nice and small to make the steering a little stiffer. And also just that classic hot rod type look. These bins have all of our front suspension, which will be one of the first things we end up working on. We have the steering column right here. That's a tilt steering column that I got out of a Chrysler New Yorker out at the junkyard. I wanted the tilt wheel just to make it a little easier for me to get in and out of the car. And it's also going to have the key ignition switch is actually on the column. So when you shut the car off, it'll lock the steering wheel, make it a little less likely to get stolen. Here we've got some headlights, some brand new headlight buckets from Speedway Motors. We want to make sure everything looks nice when it's all put together. At this time, we just have standard replacement incandescent light bulbs. I think in the future here, we probably will replace these with an LED bulb, just to make things a little brighter, a little safer when we're driving down the road. Here are the taillights we're going to end up using. Again, I got these from Speedway Motors. I've got 4 of these. These are just Pontiac tail lamps. I think it's pretty nice style. Kind of fits the overall look of the car here. So we'll have 4 of those. And again, I will end up putting LED bulbs in here, just to make it a little brighter. I want to make sure people can see when we step on the brake or indicate a turn. Right here, this hoop here, this is actually the rear bumper. This has been already fit to the car and is almost ready to clean up and paint. I do want to make a few more modifications, but we got to get a little further before we can wrap that up. Down here, we've got the front bumper. We'll show you how that mounts. We did fabricate that just to make sure it follows the body lines and looks good. Laying down here on the side, we've got our gear oil, we've got our brake fluid, that's all ready to go. The transmission or the transaxle has already been rebuilt on this. I went through that, made sure everything was in good working order. Everything was cleaned, it was resealed, it's got a fresh coat of paint on it. So that's actually ready to go. That was something I did years ago before we ended up shelving this project. So you can see there's just a pile of stuff here, multitude of parts that's going into even just a simple vehicle. What we're going to do is we'll go through, like I said, I'll sort all of this, make sure I know what I have. I'll double check it against my lists to see if there's anything else that I need. From there, we can start putting away those items that we're not going to need for some time. just to clean it up and make some room. Once I get all this sorted, situated, and put away, we'll get up a little bit closer to the car and kind of show you what's going on there. So you can see we've got everything put away now. I took the seats, I've got those wrapped in plastic, and they're put back inside. And we can take a little bit closer look at what's going on here. In a couple of minutes here, we'll pull the body off so we can look at the chassis up close. But if you take a look, you can see some new parts that have been installed. We do have a new shifter. Transmission is all hooked up and ready to go. The handbrake here, we've got new cables installed there. The rear brakes are all completed. We've got some new brake lines installed. If we take a close look here at the chassis, here you can see we've got some brackets installed for the seats. We do have a fresh coat of paint on there. The dashboard here, there's not much to look at. This area has actually been cut out to clear the steering column. We'll worry about cleaning this up and filling that in later. Speedometer is going to go here. Right now the windshield is currently put away. We do need to get a new windshield. The windshield's cracked. But let's go ahead and pull this, we'll pull this hood off and we'll just take a quick peek underneath that. With the hood out of the way, you can see our gas tank. Now this gas tank, while it looks okay up on the top here, the car that I got this out of, it's in fairly rough shape. But the big problem is that the fuel filler is down in this corner here, which limits my capacity on gas, as well as puts the filler right next to the headlight. So what we're going to do with that new gas tank is it has the filler located up here, which will allow me to run and put a filler neck up in the hood, kind of up in this region. Once we start fitting things, we can figure out which one we need to order. So we moved some things around here. We have the body removed from the chassis. I just have it hanging from the ceiling right now. But I'm going to bring you up close and just kind of give you an idea of what's going on. So back here we have the transaxle. Like I mentioned earlier, that it has been completely rebuilt. All the gears and bearings have been checked. It's been resealed, so all the gaskets and sealant is new. We've got some new rubber boots here. We do have a starter installed. We installed that when we were doing some test fitting. The clutch fork is new with a new bushing. All the brakes back here have been replaced. We have new lines that have been run, new brake cables. This here is actually the fuel line. That has been replaced. The old one was rusted out, had holes in it. The cradle that holds the transaxle in is a heavy duty unit. I installed that because I'm actually going to be hanging the bumper from that. So we've got that installed here. This plate that you see right here, this was on the car when I got it. This is for the battery tray. I haven't decided yet if we're going to use that or not. It's just welded to the tube here, so I've left it in place for now. We'll decide as we get closer to completion when we decide where to actually place the battery. Both floor pans have been replaced. The original ones were rusted through. We've got a new shifter. It's a short throw shifter. Should make it a little more fun to drive and a little more positive than just the original Volkswagen stuff. So up front here, we have the new master cylinder installed. It is a dual master cylinder. We wanted to run a little safer than the original single master cylinder that was on here. We've got the brake light switches are here. We've got the lines run for the front brakes, even though we don't have those installed yet. All that's left to do up here in the front is actually finish the beam. I've got all the parts that have already been blasted and painted. and it's really at the point where it just needs to be reassembled. Here's the fuel line. You saw the other end of it sticking out in the back. Both lines are really long right now. We'll cut those to length as we start finishing things. So that's all we have for this one here. We're really looking forward to getting this back on the road and actually finishing a new old project. It's been sitting long enough that it deserves to be finished. So on the next episode, we'll get going on the front end. We'll actually start putting things together, and hopefully in a few weeks we'll have a running driving Dune Buggy. And so stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell, so when we do post the next episode, you're aware, and you can come back and follow our progress. So we'll see you on the next one.